Yeah, and I think going back to what you were saying about like tension in the bar and all that stuff, and I think one of the things that I think we really pride ourselves on is in our warm up with our kind of activation type stuff. We're doing a lot of different drills with just our body weight to like learn to like root our feet and learn to like breathe and brace and learn to tension like the lats and stuff like in those positions what you're going to be in. Learn to kind of get your glutes firing and create that like hip torque. So those things, whether it's a bench squat or deadlift day or focus day, those are things that we practice every single workout. And I think Dan John said it's important like kind of do it every day. And you could, if it's especially if it's super like unloaded,
yeah,
you could practice these things like all the time. You could practice, getting in a good squat position.
Yeah, that falls into that work capacity. Like if you have the work capacity to, changing up rep schemes will definitely help just from energy stores and different energy systems and demands you put on you. If you do a 4x6, kind of range for a long time, and then someone has you do 12 of something, you might be tapping into a whole different world there. So if what I've had success with in the past, and success with not being injured and being able to keep progressing is really what I'm talking about with success. Is because there's some people that just wake up, eat McDonald's, and go train, and then they're fine.
Yep.
But where I've had success, where it's like, okay, I want to keep getting stronger, I want to keep moving forward, is if I'm in like a 3x3 style lift that day, I'm going to spend time in higher reps, like outside of that. So if it's like a 3x3 squat day, and I'm working on what I need to do to get my hips ready to get to depth, then I'm going to do that in such a high volume that I've got the work capacity to be under tension for that long. So if I put a timer, if I had someone else time how long a 3x3 max effort's going to take, so and I say it takes all the way rep all the way up and down. Say I'm under load for 15 seconds, right? If I'm under load for 15 seconds, well, if I can do 30 seconds of just kind of free squatting and tensioning and at the bottom of the squat, getting everything tight, I've got more work capacity as far as tension there.
You can handle it.
And then it's an actual warm up that makes sense. So where I'm lucky is I'm 1-on-1 or 1-on-2. So I can get very, very specific with that person, like in the moment, and everything I do is kind of progressing somebody somewhere, barring any side steps we have to take with people just getting injured, along the way. But when you have a larger group of people, if you're working with people with a larger group, like you do, it's hard to keep track of everybody, and then you really have to empower people with information to kind of care for themselves.
Yeah.
Where I am not envious of anybody that works with teams and things, because that's a whole other animal to where you really have to have your head on a swivel, but you also have to have a solid program or a solid system that you've created that catches a lot of those things.
Yeah.
So things are general and specific at the same time.
Yeah. I think that's important. I think especially when you're dealing with if you are someone that works with more people, like a bigger group, keeping things a little more simple, because you got to consider like logistics and how you're going to cue people. Like you're not going to be able to necessarily get your hands on like everyone at one time. That sort of thing.
Are
so doing self-correcting things, using what's up?
No, I was gonna say, are you know Frank Nash, right? So at Frank's facility, and they're somebody that has, I don't know, 350 members, give or take, and he does, he's almost doing $2 million in there now from a revenue standpoint. So from like a business standpoint, he's someone to listen to on that end. His warm-ups are the most simple warm-ups you've ever seen.
Out of necessity.
Out of necessity for a few reasons is we don't have to make this thing overcomplicated, right? And if you're working with volume with people, I mean, you really just need everybody's body temperature
Just
to come
kind
up.
of raise the core temperature a little
So
bit.
if everyone just got warm, like if you had like a ring of saunas that people could sit into, and they'd come out, and they would probably feel better and not have to do as many specific warm-ups, right? But, and I've resorted with warm-up for athletes who are trying to get more athletic performance, so they're coming here and they're going to do 40, 45 minutes of, some pretty difficult training, is I get them on the bike, or depending on their skill, they get on a jump rope, and we do just a quick interval, 3 to 5 minutes of where we're just increasing their body temperature, just getting them moving. And as their work capacity gets better, because it's amazing, after 10 times of doing that, all of a sudden, like, they could coast at those speeds. So we have to make sure they keep challenging. And then from there, we're doing some kind of banded walking, whether it's with a hip circle or with like a Perform Better, a little mini band. And then everything's going to have some kind of lower body, upper body component. So we get shoulder blades moving, and whether it's band pull aparts or some sort of position where the shoulder blades can actually get protracting, retracting, like just kind of independent of spine motion and that. And then if there's some other specific stuff where if we're gonna pull something heavier and this person's got a tendency to hurt their hamstring, then I make them get their hamstring really, really warm and just, maybe even start training the hamstring before. And I found out that I've had more people have injuries. I can't have people coming to me and me train them and they get hurt. Like, that's really bad for business. And I mean, it's just bad anyway. Like, number one thing in fitness is don't hurt your clients. And especially if I'm hurting my clients, it's almost like a tenfold problem.
Sure.
But I found that the more simple I've made it, it's people have just gotten more out of it. Yeah. And to be honest, if somebody's coming to you, even the people that are competing, if someone's coming to you to work, so if you got a trainer and you got all these clients coming to you, they don't want to do 15 minutes of warm-up. I don't want to do 15 minutes of warm-up. You don't want to do 15 minutes of warm-up, right? Part of it is disguising some of the warm-up into actual training, so then they don't know that. But you, over the length of time where general population is going to be the bulk of income, you start to look and go, well, can I trim certain things to where is this warm-up, could I get this done here when I'm doing some kind of banded walk, for example? Can I find a way that challenges them tougher so that they get more out of it and then they feel more? And because part of that's the buy-in, because that's a real thing you have to worry about. Yeah, and I just had this last night with somebody who, like, I put him through one of the best sessions ever, and he wasn't entirely happy with it because he wasn't dead afterwards.
Yeah.
So
I think
education in that.
It's also like, I think, meeting their expectation. So like if they're expecting or if they have this belief that I should be like throwing up after my workout, and that doesn't happen. That happens even sometimes with we're talking about volume and frequency and stuff. It's like if they're not like, they're like, oh, it's like, I felt like I had a little bit more in the tank, and it's like, my favorite thing is when if someone hits a PR, whether it's a rep max or an actual weight, and they actually moved it well and they still have like a little in the tank, like that's like best case scenario. It's like your movement, you like didn't have any movement, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then sometimes they're like, I only, but I only PR'd by a blah, blah. It's like, well, if this was your best and you still like even had a little bit more, like that, like I said, that's like the best case scenario. Because now it's like you're not like accumulating too much fatigue, but you're still adapting and your fitness is still improving. So that's like,
I've lost a couple people by not kind of orange theorying them, and the thing is, maybe I don't think everybody's right for everybody. And could I?
And maybe that's could
I have adjusted things?
And maybe they just want to get the feeling of being out of breath, but just understand maybe. But if you're after results, then that's not always necessary.
Well, part of it too is I'm not good at training people for fat loss and weight loss, and part of it is I understand nutrition very well, and then managing that. Yeah, managing that is not my specialty.
Yeah.
I've had my own personal problems with it, so also being authentic with people to be like, this is going to be a long road. I paid a nutritionist for an entire year and had daily check-ins for the first 6 months, which, by the way, daily check-ins with somebody is a very difficult thing.
Yeah.
And then weekly check-ins, like very high, in-depth weekly check-ins. So it made me really understand. But I feel like my body has changed since then, so I had gone back because I'm, like you and I at our height and weight couldn't sit on that couch together.
No.
Got an idea that
not at our heaviest,
we were pushing probably plus 700 pounds together, and
it's probably around there.
I think the number might be like 701, but the goal is the fact we'll be less than 500 pounds together. But there's times though, to be honest, I've been in an elevator with somebody when I was at my heaviest, and I look at that number.
You're
and
I don't know.
Wait a second. Wait a second. No. I start adding things up and go, wait, there's two people that look like me. And a real life story on this. This is almost embarrassing to even say this number. I'm 338, and I know I got heavier. I know I got more than 340, but I've never seen it on a scale.
Yeah, I was 340.
So I'm 338, and I'm on an airplane, right? Airplanes are not, and I'm already wide as you know. If I'm 185, I'm probably just as wide as I was then, like hips wise. So and shoulder wise, like it's the same build. Like it's just I have a tiny bit more of a V tape, which is really like a box tape. And I have, a little bit less of an ass, but it's still gigantic, right? So I'm sitting on this plane, and there's another person that sits next to me, very same size, and then another guy, and
oh boy,
no lies, no, they moved us.
Oh man.
So then I'm like, they moved us, and then I'm like, wait a second,
they're like trying to disperse the weight.
If 3 people, who we weighed over 1,000 pounds easily, if 3 people are going to throw this plane off, I might never want to fly in a plane ever again, because that was something else.
That's kind of a scary thought. It's like
but
we have a code.
Knowing your specialty and knowing what I'm good at, and the specific thing is knowing what I'm not good at, and just being honest with people to be like, I'm not the best person for you. I've sent 2 people away this year to someone else because they would be better for them.
Yeah, and I've done that too. Sometimes like I've gotten people, like I've in the past, like we used to. I was still kind of figuring out like what our niche was and stuff, and and since then, like, I've had some people maybe come for they want to do CrossFit or strongman and stuff. And I'm like, we don't really do that. I'm like, we do strength training and we do powerlifting. If you're looking to get stronger and improve your performance, like that's great. If you want to do a powerlifting meet, we could help you for that. But if you're like like hey, try this guy over here or whatever, and I think that's important. I think if you're a coach watching this, having those networks of people where you can refer out to, whether it's a nutritionist, a physical therapist, and all that stuff, is huge. And like I said, having someone like Jim in our corner has been great. And it's nice because I don't want to like ever overstep my bounds. Like I said, I'm a strength coach. He's a physical therapist, so like we're gonna kind of stay in our lane. And what's cool is having someone that's that you've done football and strongman and powerlifting and all this stuff. We kind of speak the same language. It's just helpful, and a lot of times we almost like, know what we're going to say, but we were on the same page. Yeah. But just having that other guy just to kind of check that box off and know, okay, I'm doing right by the athlete that I'm working with. That's a huge like kind of load off.
Well, there's times that, like when you'll send me somebody and you're right in all your thoughts all the time. Maybe there's one little extra thing, or someone will listen to me that won't listen to you about something specific, or like someone to verify that, or just a different set of eyes is always a good thing. I run into issues with people that, because I always like, if somebody's going to be serious and spend time with me and I'm going to help them, I always like knowing the other person they're working with. Like I have some people that come to me for like specialized like performance, and they still have a trainer, someone else. So I'm kind of training them very specific, and they also have somebody else. And I'm very open to just talk to people about those things, because to me, it doesn't matter. Some people are not very open about that. But what I've noticed is people are afraid when they don't know something. And I used to be that way, to where it was like, nope, have these hard opinions on things like, that's bad for you. And then at the end of the day, it's like it almost, if you could feed business to somebody else. So we own businesses, like you have to make money to keep. Like it's a weird thing, right? It makes common sense, and at the same point, it's like, oh, like yes, I could totally help you, but like I also need payment for that help, because this is like my specialty, to where, and if you don't charge enough, or you don't see enough people, then all this stuff goes away. Then you can't help anybody. Yeah. But when it comes to being like knowing, almost like the whole stay in your lane kind of thing.
Stay in your lane is big. Because anyone could post anything now.
That world is crazy. And then the fact of, you never know who people are working with, and you're not in those sessions with people, to where you might even have better information than that person, but that's not who you are to them at that time. And I used to have an identity crisis with that, to where it's like, no, I can just do all of this. I can cover all of this. But then, the other person you're going to, maybe they're not as experienced or they might not be as skilled, but that person's also helping them as well.
Yeah.
And then that person also has to learn because they've only been doing it for 5 years and they need time. But the biggest thing is checking your ego at the door.
Yeah.
And then also realizing that you don't know everything, and it's impossible to know everything. And who the hell wants to know everything anyway?
Yeah, I think for people out there that are listening who are coaches or practitioners and stuff, and if you're an athlete, hopefully that the people that you're working with, your coaches kind of do this. I think that in general, I think it's definitely better we network more and be more collaborative versus trying to, sometimes not everyone does this, but I think there's some coaches out there they kind of want to beat their chest and be like, this is the only way to do it, and I kind of have the magic bullet, I have the answer, and I think it's better if we kind of all just kind of be more inclusive versus exclusive, and we come together more, we help each other out. I just think that's just a better way to do it. And I think that we're going to end up getting better results for our clients. They're going to be healthier. They're going to be happier. They're going to be into sport longer. For me, a lot of things, what I'm trying to do with the information that we're putting out now and, with my own personal journey with the weight loss and everything, I'm just trying to preach a little bit more longevity, a little bit more of a long-term approach. Mm-hmm. And even if it's a little bit, maybe we get a little bit less performance in the short term, over the long haul, if you're in the game longer and you're healthier and you feel good, you're going to get a lot more out of what you put into it. I think that's the biggest thing.
The simple way of that is kind of like supply and demand. So whatever demand you put on your body, are you supplying it with enough to even go back to the tendon issue? Are you supplying, if you have some kind of tendonitis, some kind of inflammation, something, are you supplying it with enough stress to that tendon to help it realign the fibers and to heal or to retension? Are you supplying with enough water? Are you hydrated enough?
The hydration, sleep, and stress stuff, nutrition, I think.
Yeah, stress management, the
actual
recovery.
Stress management, I think, is something that I've been trying to dive into more and more and more with different breathing, and I'm doing a little yoga and stuff, and I'm
mindfulness.
regular bit. I think, because it's like, I know there's some people that try to forecast different things with training and weights and stuff, but it's like, you can't you can't account for
you can't account for car accidents and breakups and fights
rage and fights and
stomach distress from food not properly stress, just literally anything.
Yeah, I think learning to just kind of down regulate a little bit is definitely a big thing.
And also perspective on we'll take someone training for a powerlifting competition. So you get injured and you can't compete. It's not the end of the world. There's more competition.
Some people, they have this mental breakdown.
Yeah. And I've always joked around saying sports and training, fitness, competition life, it's almost like an amalgam of life. It's so people that are out on a golf course, if your ball rolls into something and then you just throw a hissy fit, when it's literally your ball just rolled left when it should have rolled right, are you going to throw a hissy fit in life?
Worst things that happen.
When
it's true. So actually,
in training, something goes wrong and you throw a hissy fit, it's childish.
One of our members, he did this fundraiser for Haiti, which was really cool. And he actually went there, and they're building this great library and stuff. And they, it's going to be a really nice thing for the community. And he was saying just the living conditions that some of these people are in. It's the stuff that we get kind of bent out of shape over is so. Yeah. Little,
we go forever.
And it's oh man, it's or I got 7.
Listen, I ordered 3 Splendid in my Starbucks drink.
Oh man!
And when I drank that, it only tasted like there were 2 Splendids.
Did they forget the soy milk too?
Well, here's the problem: is I ordered it upside down and they put it the regular way.
Oh man!
I ordered a venti and the kid forgot to put the extra pump of sugar-free vanilla in it. It's just part of that too is just I used to be real hard on people, especially. I've been lucky to be around a lot of high school kids that have stuck around me, and I've almost been like big brotherish to them. And they have these fits about the most BS things, but then I also realize they're 20 years old, so their width of perspective on stuff. I've had, I'm in
tragedy happen to them.
I've been, I'm lucky enough that I'm still around in my mid 30s, right? Because I've had some people around me not be there, and then. It's we have a hurricane, we lose half of our things, I lose a couple cars.
I had it really bad.
Yeah, so stuff. But there's people that lost their houses, and there's people that died.
died or or they lost.
So it's
their
like
whole
everything that I
business
lost was
wiped
all
out, or-
replaceable, and like I can fix things. So I can do demolition, I can do sheetrock, I can rebuild walls.
Your family's healthy. They're
They're alive.
good,
The whole
you know.
had a, my son was 8 weeks old at the time, so
Yeah, that's
it was like he didn't float away. Hey, there was somebody in that storm that was sitting in their car ready to go, and there were two major stories, whether or not they're true. One of them is definitely true. Tree falls and kills a family, and then one where there was this big rush
That's
when
crazy.
the water came in, and I actually remember when it happened because I was trying to like bear down the hatches a little bit, and there was a point where water really got high. It must have been some big old wave or push or something, but like a car got taken over and the person like died. So it's like here I am complaining that I lost a car, which was a new one. I liked the car, and you know, it was an asset, and I was able to get clean out of it, so whatever. But all that stuff was a car. It was a piece of metal with wheels and a steering wheel. That's it. Where when you bring that into training and even injuries, where when you're working with somebody, you have to you have to know where they're coming from, because it might be really important to them that they do this and do that, because you know it maybe settles some stuff. Maybe they got stuff to prove to people. I've always felt like I've had a chip on my shoulder that I got to prove stuff to people.
I think that, and I think a lot of successful people have kind of. I know, like, I know for me, I definitely had, you know, I was like never really athletic and stuff, and you know, I definitely had a chip on my shoulder during high school sports and stuff, and especially I was always like just a little bit short of my goals. That kind of drove me to like learn and do better, and I know it's funny you say that, because initially, like in my business, especially when we started working with some athletes that were starting to do really well, and then you know we're like, oh, you know, I was a little bit like, and you know, I've evolved since then, but I was a little bit like kind of more cocky, and we're like, oh, look how strong our guys are and our girls are getting, and you know we're the best, and it became more of a thing about like showing like how significant, you know, we are doing and how like good we are, and then now it's a little bit different, like you know, I've helped people break world records and, you know, get nationally ranked and all this stuff. So, like, for me, it's like, okay, that's, like, great. But also, like, I get just as much joy, you know, like, my mom, she did her first, like, you know, barbell squats, like, below parallel, which was awesome. And I get so now it's more about, like, contributing and helping more people. And the numbers are great, and we want to always strive for progress and be better, but also just be grateful for, like, where we are right now.
Yeah,
and just try to be, like, a little bit better.
What are you putting into this world? You know, are you putting in as much as you're taking out?
Yeah.
Whether you know, it's this I can give similar examples of like this week having somebody who you know is a teacher, soon to retire, finishing a yoga and you know 300-hour yoga instruction, and there's certain positions she can't get into because of her knee. She goes to the orthopedist. The orthopedist says, "Well, lay off of that for a little bit."
Don't do it.
It's exactly what he said.
Yeah,
by the
don't
way.
do it.
And
Don't do
you know,
it.
and so we took the time to find. And I have a history with this woman, so I know. Like I know her tendencies, I know what goes wrong. I know she felt better and stopped doing things. So there was that part of it. But the other part was there was an actual actual tibia mobility problem, which should probably be its own little feature at some point. On everyone needs to look at one little thing. Just the mechanics on how the knee bends and how the tibia needs to bend. Just the actual mechanics on how it works. So it's like when the knee bends, there's a little internal rotation that happens, and if you can restore that internal rotation. And then we think of all these extra forces, like you talk screwing the feet into the ground. Like we think, what do those forces create? How do we walk? And then what kind of stresses that putting on there? So we just looked at like two things, and she was able to get into the position.
That's great.
And like she started like tearing up a little bit because now she can do everything she wants to do again.
That's awesome. Man.
So there's those situations. Then there's helping a professional golfer stay healthy so then they can make the cut and then make the big tour and then be everything. But then you know at the end of the day, it's like okay, I was helping people with their goals, so I'm satisfied on that, and then I know I'm at least adding into
you
this
feel like
whole
you make
society or whatever.
You feel like you're making an impact.
Corny way you want to say
it.
Yeah,
you feel like you're making an impact, and I think that's big, and I think that's like really fulfilling. You know, because like I said, it's like you know, what do we kind of like put on this earth to do? You know, so I think the more like impacts we get, the more lives we can touch. I think that'd be good.
Which also takes time to get there. Like it takes years to figure out.
Yeah,
like I always joke around to say before I got good at what I'm doing, and before I've been like comfortable with even saying that out loud, like I'm good at what I do, like I had to like screw a lot of people up.
Yeah, it's funny.
Not that I did it on purpose, but it's like I had to like waste a lot of people's time and effort and money.
My business coach always says like when you
messing them up.
It's like a seminar or whatever, a podcast, whatever you're doing. It's like your first one's always going to be your worst one.
Well, it's
like
I did a podcast that
and you get better, you learn, and you improve. And
I did it for 2 years. It was weekly, and then became bi-weekly. It was in 61 countries. People were eating it up.
Yeah, it's cool.
I was at a conference, and people were, quoting me.
Yeah, it's cool.
I have weird, tics of things that I say, and they're saying it, busting my chops, saying
you said it.
Hey, what's going on, kind of thing. I was like, I don't say that all the time, and then
I
listened to one because I never listened to them, and I was like, wow, I say that all the time, but. I used it to try to get better at just getting some thoughts out and things that way. But it was something where I was dedicated to something. I stuck with something, and then I got out of it what I needed to get out of it.
Yep.
And then I was like, well, I don't need to do it all the time now because, I accomplished something with it.
Yeah.
A personal accomplishment
Yeah.
of saying, growth, whether it was, like I said, just critical thinking and just speaking.
Yeah.
And then another part was, if I give information out there, am I okay with information that I give to a larger group of people?
Right.
Because I say a lot of really testy things, I have to try really hard to not swear because it's part of my normal language, and I have to try really hard to not be suggestive with stuff that I say because it's part of my normal language. It's a group of, it's even like my clientele, the age group and stuff like that. Sure. It's kind of the reality I live in, and we live in a slightly different world. But part of that too is the simple thing of almost being authentic and saying, are you yourself all the time? And is that the person that could, if you're have a business, is that the person you could be? And whether that's online or in person,
Sure.
and the rest of that ends up being, you find out who you are and what you're doing, and then you be that person. Cool. Shit starts happening, which is cool.
So we kind of obviously went like a whole different turn, which I thought was cool. But I think whether it be kind of your personal development or business or dealing with injuries or training, I think a big quality that's probably really important is having patience. And I think a lot of people, especially with now everything that's happening quick.
We live in a very on demand. I mean, that even happens to me when my phone bogs down. I turn it off and turn it back on, and I'm like, you better start working because I own you.
It's not loading as fast as I want.
But it takes time to get there. So if you're a clinician and you learn a skill, like you got to work on a lot of people and you got to mess some people up, and you got to figure out if you're even good at it, and then you got to figure out did you diagnose it correctly. That might take 5 years.
Yeah, and we always I always use this example. I feel bad if this guy ever listens, but I one time had a guy. He did like a consult or whatever, and he emailed me. He said, I'm like, what's your goal? And he was like, I want to squat 700 pounds. And where are you at now? He's like, 365 or 375 or something like that. I'm like, well, I've actually done that. That took over 10 years.
Yeah.
I gained 100 pounds of body weight and all this stuff, and it's like, do you want to do the 10-year special? You want to, and it's like, I think people
here's my 10-year price.
It's like,
what? If you don't offer that price, no one's going to buy it.
That's true. I should have. You always got to have that high price option, right? That's your business business tip. But I think that unfortunately, I think there's a lot of good stuff. Obviously with social media, you guys wouldn't be like listen to this and all this stuff, but it's really important that you really can be objective and kind of compare you to you. I know it again sounds, and it's great. Like we both work with really competitive people, and for those like 1% of the people that are like the Larry Wheels and stuff like that, who are breaking records, that's great. But even with him, and what I've learned, and when Larry, I'll use Larry as an example. When I started treating Larry like the 19-year-old kid that he was, and not that he's a potential world record holder, that's when his results started to come. He started to be a little bit more focused on the process.
Yeah, he's a person.
And then instead of I'll admit this, I put too much pressure on him initially, and then we were like, we're just going to focus on getting a little better every cycle, and we're going to focus on just hitting little PRs here and there. And I mean, he's like gone from doing a 1,900 pound total to now he's closing in on over 2,300, which is just like mind blowing. He's in his early 20s, so it's like, what's the rush?
Yeah.
And if there's someone, maybe there's going to be someone that passes him, and I'm sure there will be, but it's like, let's just try to have him be the best that he can be, And for him, that's, world record potential.
Yeah,
but it's like,
maximize-
just
yeah.
maximize you and don't be in such a rush.
Yeah.
And I think
Makes
that it's
sense.
really important for, especially like when you're coming back from an injury and stuff. I went from like when we first hooked up and you were working on my shoulder, the guy's like, you're never going to bench press again. And, I've hit, I've hit more PRs and since that injury, and I wasn't supposed to be able to bench like again.
Yeah, part of it is knowing who you are, but the one thing, even going back to one of the first things, is sometimes what's wrong in your body might actually make you special. So having when things, people come to people like me when things are wrong. So this hurts, get me out of pain, I need to go there. To where an interesting approach that's used in professional sports is when things are really, really good, let's get an assessment of everything. So that when something gets bad, you can actually go back to what's good. So baseball player, like when they're hitting well, like where's your stance, how much is your rotation, what's everything look like. A golfer, when they're playing well, where are their feet on the ground, they you got all these launch monitor numbers, where's everything. When you're powerlifting, it's like, do you have a specific way that you're setting up? How are you doing things? Are you coming down? Is it right hand, left hand? Like, what have you doing? Your sleep habits, your food, the timing of, so what's the process? And some of those things might make you special to where, you might have, like I see this with people with tight ankles and tight calves, and they get this long Achilles, and those people are usually pretty fast and explosive. And then you look and you go, well, I'm not changing that. Because I did this with a professional golfer where I fixed their rotation, and they felt better, and they played worse. And I messed them up, so I had to put them back to their dysfunction.
I think a classic example of that is in pitchers.
Fixing that internal rotation. Yeah, that's
that's
the biggest one
that's
that's got the most eyes on it. Is they use that increased external rotation,
so
and then they have decrease.
So that asymmetry is what makes them
special.
It makes them throw harder and faster. So it's just understanding. So cool. So I think wrap up soon, and we'll definitely love to do like a part 2 at some point. Maybe if you guys have some specific topics that you'd like. For Jim, maybe it could be like whatever, warm up, foam rolling, whatever. Different
definitely.
stuff. We could have specific. If you want to drop them in the comments.
Yeah, put them in the comments. It'd be easier to keep them all in one.
Just
one
so
place.
because this was kind of a more general. Like I said, we want to catch up, get like the backstory a little bit, and give you guys. I think there was a lot of good nuggets in there just from training. There was a lot of good training stuff in there, and also just like lifestyle, just life advice.
Yeah, and if there's anything specific, we could always tease that out. And
it could be like
we
could do like individual shows. We could do other stuff. If you guys are like local, I know like we've done actually clinics and stuff before. So if you guys are interested in stuff, like I said, leave them in the comments, or if you want to send a direct message, that's fine. Just before you can kind of give your where people could find you and all that stuff. But if you have any like closing advice for someone that's maybe getting into powerlifting, getting into strength training, maybe it's something that you've made mistakes with or whatever, or you see people making a mistake. What advice could you give someone that's like starting out and they want to get into powerlifting? Maybe they're training for their first meet.
Yeah, I would say the first
advice.
Specifically with powerlifting, don't worry about all the added extra things. Like I need my special lift shoes. I need a specific belt. Should I get a lever belt? Should I get this belt? Should I get an Inzer belt? Should I get pro wrist straps? Should I have a longer length and a shorter length? All these individual things. Like, don't worry about the specifics, and just get stronger and enjoy the process. I think the thing that's lost in fitness is people don't enjoy it enough.
Yeah.
You need somebody to coach you, and it is okay if it's like your bigger brother and things like that.
Right.
But you eventually, if you want to take something to another level, you do have to do your research, and there's some platforms out there that are probably better to figure out who knows what they're talking about. But you're going to have to invest into a coach or invest into, a PT, a chiro, a massage person, somebody who looks at the body and will actually like fix the problems. But you also need somebody who's kind of walked through the fire a little bit, and where they train or they have trained. And I'm not saying that people cannot be good who haven't done that, but if you've competed and you've been through it, you can help other people because it's always the other intangibles. So I would say enjoy the process, and don't worry about the little things. And
just go back to what you're saying about enjoying the process too. I think, I know like that group that we had back in the day. I
Yeah.
mean, we didn't do a lot of things right, but man, we had a good time. We had a
tons
we had
of
a good
fun.
time. We had a
Tons
good
of
time
fun.
in there.
Yeah, we did a lot of bad things.
And we got stronger, and we hit PRs and stuff. And one thing that I just want to definitely make sure I say this, and because I've said this a couple of times, but here and there, like I'll do some accessories at a commercial gym that's like local to me, and I still will always train with my team, especially for like the heavy stuff. But I'm trying to like lose some weight and do a little cardio, stuff like that. One thing that really frustrates me is that you might have like 3 guys, whatever, that are in 3 different squat racks, and they're all like doing 315, and it's like, why aren't these guys like training together? Why aren't they like? So I really think I think coaching is great, but I think also like if you can get like in it with a group of guys or girls, if you're a female watching.
Yeah,
if
you're a trainer, train with your clients every once in a while,
Yeah.
one-on-one. Maybe not charge them for a session and actually work out with them, and then show them that you struggle the same way. Show them you hate lunges as much as they hate lunges.
Yeah, well,
and you whine as much as they whine.
so-
It's kind of being authentic, being part of the process. And having fun. That's still the thing. That's missed in everything.
At the end of the day, like
people don't enjoy it.
Don't forget like why you started this.
Yeah.
I think like for me, like just getting strong just always made me feel good, and I felt like I was in control, and that was like the one thing. I never was really. I always had a hard time with some of the team sports and stuff, so I really kind of gravitated toward wrestling. I felt like more in control of that, and same thing with lifting. Is like you're in control of your body, you're in control of like how strong or.
Yep. There's no side effects to getting strong.
You know what I mean? So I think it's always going to be a benefit. So Jim, thanks so much for having us come down today. We had a great time. Always enjoyed catching up. If you guys are local to Long Island, or even if I don't know if you get like people traveling. Like,
I do get people. I've got people that come up here from Maryland, believe it or not, Philly,
we had
New York,
we had someone like that from Australia,
all over the place. Cool. The funny part is when you put data points on where everyone comes from, it's like I only have like 3 local people. Like everybody else is
I know, it's kind of funny.
Is spread across the map.
We talked about
no, but people are welcome to reach out, and if anyone wants to to see what I do here, or I have when I talk at Hofstra, like I'm like an adjunct, not adjunct, like a guest lecturer. I always get students that want to shadow and cool. Things like I'm open to that, or somebody's got something going on, I'm willing. It's always easier to see it in person because I need to see how things move. And even New York State, we don't have. I'm a rule follower, so we don't have anybody that's doing any kind of digital stuff that looks like therapy, where it's like, oh, I'm going to video you and watch you bend. Like you can't do those things. But in person, it's always better. But feel free to reach out.
Website or social, like where can they find
Yeah, my website's myfpfitness.com. Just use the contact form on there. It all comes directly to me. My social media is Dr. Alberry, DrAlberry on Instagram, and Facebook, my name.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching or listening, depending on what platform you're on. Make sure you give this a 5-star review on iTunes. Helps other people find us. Please subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.